Poor blacks and middle-class blacks, and do you think at this point, there's been lots of conversations on Bill Cosby's comments about the black family. Is there a huge difference there, and how can we have those two groups come together a little bit more?
Well, you know, at one time, especially in the South, it didn't matter whether you were a PhD or no D. It didn't matter if some people said whether you got it from Morehouse or your house. Really. Because segregation, you could be a millionaire. You can be a blank millionaire. We have a guy in Atlanta who's a wonderful friend, big supporter of mine, very wealthy. His name is Herman Russell. He's a big developer, big builder, very successful. But in 1960, 61, 62, he can go to a lunch counter. He could buy that lunch counter. He could buy that store. You had a guy like A.J. Gaston, who was a big, very successful multimillionaire in Birmingham, Alabama. But he couldn't go downtown and drink out of a so-called white water fountain. So after desegregation, you saw this unbelievable and moving gap between poor and middle class and those at the top. So a lot of people in our country that are poor have been left out and left behind. And it's not just true in the American South, and not just true in rural America, but I think what happened in New Orleans with Katrina probably dramatized more than anything in recent years the problem of race and poverty. These are the people, they couldn't get out. They didn't have an automobile. They didn't have the money to buy a bus ticket or get on a plane and fly from New Orleans to Houston or Dallas or to Atlanta. So they were stuck. And I think there's a need, Leah, there's a great need for members of the black middle class to reach back and try to help and bring people along. It is an ongoing problem in the American society. We got to solve the problem. As Du Bois said, the problem of the 20th century is a problem of race, the color line, and maybe the problem of the 21st century in America is still race, but it's more than race. It's poverty, it's health care, and we got to work on it.
Representative Lewis, you had mentioned SNCC before. Will you talk a little bit about SNCC and how it started and if that could be a basis for what these young people could start?
Well, I think today's young people can learn a great deal from the young people of another period. SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the nickname of, people call it SNCC, S-N-I-C-K, but it was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. It was a group of young people. It was Martin Luther King Jr. under the leadership of a young woman by the name of Ella Baker. Black woman, grew up in North Carolina, worked for the NAACP, later for Dr. King. When the sit-in started, he asked her to hold a conference to bring together these students that were sitting in all across the South. And she had a meeting in North Carolina, Easter weekend, 1960, April 1960, where we met. And that's where the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee was founded. It was called the Temporary Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in April 1960. Then it met again in October 1960 on Morehouse campus in Atlanta, and it became a permanent organization. And it was the young people, black and white, that went all across the South, not just participating in the sit-ins and the freedom rides, but it went into the heart of Mississippi, southwest Georgia, the Black Belt of Alabama, the most dangerous part of the South. These young people, these college students, these sneakers, a lot of the local people call them the Freedom Riders. And it was sort of like Paul Revere's coming. You hear people saying, the Freedom Riders, they refer to many people that were not Freedom Riders, but they refer to us all as being the Freedom Riders, that we were coming. It was like these folks coming to change us, to liberate us.
Well, I go to a predominantly African-American school, and the civil rights means a lot to me. It seems how, if it weren't for the civil rights, I probably wouldn't have half the friends I have today. And I would like to know, what's your opinion on how the civil rights has affected other ethnicities and how we could all come together and form some kind of group where we can all have different ethnicities come together and talk to one another and that kind of thing. How do you suggest we would go about doing that as a student body?
Well, I think the civil rights movement changed all of us and freed and liberated all America. That's why I said from time to time, Martin Luther King Jr. must be looked upon as one of the founding fathers of the new America. He liberated not just black people and freed not just black people, but he freed all of us, and we are better people. I hear people all the time saying, white Southerners saying, thank you, John Lewis, for what you did. You made me a better human being. In that process, we have to move every single day, every single step of bringing people together and creating, again, one family. I know you get tired of me saying this, but it's one family. It's one house. We all live in the same house, and all of us must have a place at the table, at the same table, just like a big family. And it doesn't matter whether we're black or white or Hispanic or Asian American or Native American. We're one family, we're one people, we're one house. And Dr. King and the Civil Rights Movement opened up all the possibilities for us just to be human beings.
Going off of that, will you tell the story about when you were younger and your grandmother had the shotgun house and you had the big storm, and you were saying how when one side of the house looked up, you went over your little bodies and you tried your best to put it down? Like, how do you pertain that metaphor to America today?
Well, today, as a member of Congress and as an individual, I think I'm doing my little part in trying to hold this house together. I think the young people that marched in Birmingham, the people that marched from Selma to Montgomery, all of the hundreds and thousands of black and white, Hispanic and Asian, Native American that participated in all of the great movement and struggle played a role in holding the house together. So another generation played a role. They did their part. And we must continue to do our part in holding this house together. In spite of all of the problems, in spite of all of the difficulties, I say we must never, ever give up. We must never, ever give in. We must never become bitter or hostile. We must keep the faith, keep our eyes on the prize, and believe that we can hold this house together. Not just the American house, but the world house.
What challenge would you have for young people today in our generation to accomplish in the future?
Well, my message to young people today is to learn as much as you can. Read. I had a teacher when I was in, I guess, the 6th or 7th grade, said, my child, read. Read, and I tried to read everything. Read, get involved, keep up with current events, study history, and do your part. You must keep in mind that during the 60s, we didn't have an email address. We never heard of a website. We didn't have a fax machine. We didn't have a cellular telephone. But we used what we had. And today, with the new technology, you have so much more. So much more. And you have to use it for good.
What a great conversation we have had here today. I think something that we've all learned from all ages. And thank you so much for watching Civil Rights Across Generations. A special thank you to you, Representative John Lewis, for sharing your information, being so courageous. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Civil Rights Across Generations is a co-production of the General Mills Foundation, Champions for a Stronger Community, on the web at generalmills.com/foundation, and TPT's Minnesota channel.